On my son's 29th birthday, I overheard him telling his friends, "The best gift my mom could give me is to disappear from my life forever." What he didn't know was this mother still had plenty to teach him about consequences. My name is Gloria Bennett. I'm 61 years old, living in Savannah, Georgia. I never thought there would come a day when I'd have to tell this story, the day a mother realizes the son she raised for 3 decades no longer sees her as family. I spent the entire day preparing for my son's birthday, Ethan, 29. In my hands was a chocolate cake, and under my arm, a watch he'd always wanted. I wanted to surprise him, so I went around to the back door. From the yard, I heard music, smelled barbecue in the air, and laughter. Through the glass, I saw Ethan standing by the grill with his two friends, Jason and Mark. His girlfriend, Madison, sat at the wooden table, scrolling through her phone with a half smile. "Your mom's amazing, this party is awesome," Jason said, raising his beer. Ethan smirked. "Yeah, she always overdoes it. Always trying to buy my affection. She thinks money fixes everything." My hands trembled, and the cake nearly slipped from the tray. Mark cut in. "At least your mom cares." "Cares?" Ethan laughed dryly. "She just wants control. Honestly, the best gift she could ever give me is to disappear from my life forever." That sentence cut through me like a knife. 30 years of motherhood, sleepless nights when he was sick, triple shifts just to raise him right, all reduced to a wish that I'd vanish. Madison looked up from her phone and said coldly, "If that's what you want, just tell her. Ask her to move out." Ethan shrugged. "With what money? She controls everything. Acts like I'm still 15. I stood there, holding a cake for the son who wished I'd disappear. Their laughter echoed through the air and through my heart. Memories flooded back. His graduation day. Last Christmas when he wouldn't even look at me. The morning he used my credit card without saying a word. And when I confronted him, he said flatly, "You're overreacting." Through the window, I watched him laughing with his friends at a party paid for entirely by me. The pain in my chest shifted into something colder. Clarity. If Ethan truly wanted me out of his life, maybe it was time I gave him exactly what he wanted, but not in the way he expected. I set the cake down, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. "Ethan," my voice sliced through the music like a blade. "Can we talk privately?" He turned around, that familiar, indifferent look in his eyes, the look of someone who'd never had to face the consequences of his actions. "You heard that, huh? Yeah, it's true. You're always in my business, everyone here knows it." His words were so cold, they almost took my breath away. "You can say that after everything I've done for you?" "No one asked you to do it," Ethan said, taking another sip of beer as his friends nodded. "You act like I owe you something for choices you made yourself." Jason crossed his arms and added, "He's right, Mrs. Bennett. Parents choose to have kids, not the other way around." That hurt even more than Ethan's words. I looked around the yard, the place I'd worked my whole life to buy. The place I once imagined filled with family and love, now just the stage for my public humiliation. I steadied my voice. 29 years, I've given you everything you've ever needed. And I never asked for any of it." Ethan shouted, his friends cheering him on. "You want gratitude for things I didn't even ask for? That's your problem, not mine." Mark laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. Typical old-school mom move: sacrifice everything, then demand thank yous. The laughter died down. People began to fall silent, forming a loose circle around us. A few looked uncomfortable, but no one intervened. They just watched a live family tragedy unfolding in the backyard. "So when you said you wanted me gone from your life, you meant it?" For a brief second, surprise flickered in Ethan's eyes, a crack in his mask, then came anger. "Yeah. You're always hovering, preaching, forcing your standards on me. If you actually had your own life instead of trying to control mine, maybe we'd both be happier. I looked straight into his eyes and said quietly, "This house, the food, the car you drive, all come from the woman you wish would disappear." "Exactly," Ethan said coldly. "And when you're gone, maybe I'll miss the free house for 5 minutes. After that, I'll figure it out." Madison giggled from the table, eyes still glued to her phone. "Ethan, you're awful," she said, but her tone was full of admiration, as if his cruelty were something to be proud of. The music kept playing. The smell of barbecue lingered in the air. Guests still ate the food I had prepared, while the last bit of respect between a mother and her son was quietly dissolving. I turned away and walked out of the crowd. Some people smirked, others avoided my eyes. Ethan's laughter echoed behind me as I stepped back into the house. But something inside me had changed forever. It wasn't just pain anymore, it was a cold, sharp clarity. He wanted me gone? Fine, but not in the way he imagined. Each stair creaked beneath my feet as I climbed to the second floor, every step pulling me farther from the laughter, celebrating my humiliation. I closed my bedroom door softly, as if shutting out a nightmare where my own son found joy in his mother's suffering. In the mirror, I saw a stranger. When had I become this smiling doormat, the woman who kept serving and forgiving someone who disrespected her? Ethan was 29, had never held a real job. No savings, no credit history, no skill other than spending what I provided. His entire life rested on the kindness he despised. And I wondered, what would happen if that kindness vanished? The thought hit me like fresh air rushing into a suffocating room. I owned this house debt-free. Every bill, every meal, every watt of power that kept his video games running all night paid with my money. If he truly wanted me out of his life, I could give him that, but on my terms. Ethan was about to learn the difference between freedom and responsibility, between independence and abandonment. He wanted space. Soon, he'd have more than he could handle. The party went on until midnight. I lay in bed, listening to laughter and chatter drifting upstairs, every sound a reminder of his words. When the last guest finally left and Ethan stumbled into his room, the house sank into heavy silence. I couldn't sleep. His voice kept echoing in my head. "The best gift would be for you to disappear from my life forever." Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his friends laughing in agreement, and I knew from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. I pictured Madison still laughing, as if it were the funniest thing in the world. By 4 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I went downstairs and made coffee. The house was a mess, glasses everywhere, dirty dishes piled in the sink, empty bottles scattered across the yard. The decorations I'd spent hours setting up were trampled, a few banners torn apart. It felt like that party hadn't just wrecked my home, it had stomped on my dignity. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, thinking not with emotion or tears, but with the cold logic of someone who'd finally seen the truth. Ethan was 29 and had never worked a single day in his life. Every time I suggested he find a job, he'd say, "The job market's tough," or "The pay's too low," or "Mom, you don't get how the world works now." I remembered every credit card bill I'd paid for him, every tuition payment covered by my weekend shifts, the car in my name because he couldn't get approved, and the mortgage I'd paid off over 6 long years, all for the hope that someday he'd grow up, be independent, and let me finally rest. What a fool I'd been. I pulled out a piece of paper and started doing the math. How much was I spending each month to keep Ethan afloat? Groceries, electricity, since he ran the air conditioner nonstop, internet, cable, gas. When I added it all up, the number stunned me: over $2,500 a month, nearly my entire pension. And what did I get in return? a son who treated me like a burden, humiliated me in front of his friends, and wished me gone forever. As dawn broke, I was still sitting there in the messy kitchen, thinking about everything. Ethan was upstairs, sleeping soundly, unaware that his mother had just spent an entire sleepless night reassessing her life. To him, it had been just another party, another night of pleasure paid for by me. By 8 a.m., I started cleaning not because he deserved it, but because I couldn't stand the chaos. While rinsing dishes and picking up glasses, a thought came to me simple, almost frightening in its clarity, but perfectly calculated. Ethan wanted me gone from his life. Fine. I could do exactly that. Around 10 a.m., he came downstairs in his pajamas, looking hungover. He grabbed a glass of water, swallowed some headache pills, not even glancing my way. "Good morning, Ethan. Fun party?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, it was fine," he muttered, eyes glued to his phone. "Thanks for setting everything up." That thank you was hollow, the kind of empty politeness you give a housekeeper, not your mother. I smiled faintly. "You're welcome, son. Are you going out today?" "If he's meeting friends, then go. Why are you asking?" "Just curious." He went back up to his room without another word. For Ethan, it was just another ordinary morning. But for me, it was the day everything changed. I waited until he left the house, then began to make inquiries. First, I called the real estate company that had helped me buy this house. I wanted to know its current value after 6 years. The agent answered cheerfully, "Mrs. Bennett, this neighborhood has gone up a lot. If you sell now, you could get nearly double what you paid before." I was silent for a few seconds, and a lightness washed over me. A path was opening up, a way out of this toxic life where I'd become nothing but a walking wallet. I opened my computer and searched for rental apartments in other states and places where I could start over. I found many cozy, peaceful spots with rents that were only a fraction of what I was spending on Ethan each month. That whole afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, organizing the house papers, my savings book, old marriage documents, and insurance files. Each paper set aside felt like a brick being removed from the wall that had confined me for so many years. Late that afternoon, Ethan came home, looking refreshed from time with his friends. He waved a little and went up to his room to turn on his game. The electronic music echoed through the house, a sound that used to wear me down, now only reinforced that I was doing the right thing. At dinner, I tried to bring it up calmly. "Have you thought about work at all? Or at least sharing some of the household expenses?" He answered curtly without bothering to look up. "You know I don't have money. I'll figure it out when I get a good job." "And when will that be?" I asked, gently but firmly. "When a decent opportunity comes along," he replied, looking up at me as if I were a nuisance. I understood. For Ethan, there would never be an enough opportunity good enough, because he had no reason to change as long as I kept providing. That night, after he went up to his room, I sat alone in the kitchen. I picked up the phone and called my sister, Clara, who lives in Asheville, North Carolina. We hadn't spoken in a long time, but tonight I needed to hear a family voice. "Clara, it's me, Gloria." "Gloria, it's been so long. Are you okay?" "So. I'm thinking about making a change. Could I come stay with you for a few days?" "Of course. My home is always open to you. What's going on?" On the other end of the line, Clara's voice went sharp. "Good grief. That boy needs to learn responsibility. You've given your whole life to him. And now, I'm going to do things differently." "What do you mean?" she asked. I looked around the quiet kitchen. My coffee gone cold in my cup. "I'm going to disappear from his life just as he wanted." Clara was silent for a long moment, then said softly, "Absolutely sure. It's the only way he'll learn." When I hung up, a strange peace settled over me, a feeling I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I was making a choice not out of anger or revenge, but out of respect for myself, the woman I was, before I became Ethan's mother. In the days that followed, I began to act quietly, without arousing suspicion. Ethan lived on as usual, going out with friends, gaming all night, treating the house like a five-star hotel. He had no idea a storm was coming. For the first time in years, I slept easily. Not because the problems were gone, but because I finally had a clear plan. Ethan wanted me out of his life, and it was about to happen, with consequences he could never have imagined. The son who thought he could disdain his mother without paying a price was about to learn what real solitude feels like. On Tuesday morning, Ethan came down to the kitchen, more excited than usual, backpack slung over his shoulder and a bright smile on his face. "Mom, I've got great news. Ben just got a big bonus, so he invited the whole group to Myrtle Beach for a few days. We rented a vacation place near the beach to relax a bit." "That's great, honey. When are you leaving?" "This afternoon. Ben's picking me up at 2 o'clock. We'll be back Sunday." 5 whole days. 5 days he'd be out of the house. While Ethan excitedly talked about the trip, BBQ parties, well-deserved fun after all the stress I felt, as if the universe itself was helping me finish my plan. "Mom, can you lend me some spending money? Just about $200? I looked at him and said calmly, "Ethan, you're 29 years old. Don't you think it's time to earn your own money for things like this?" He frowned, puzzled. "Mom, I'm just borrowing it. I'll pay you back once I get a job," I replied softly, not angry, just stating the truth. "Sweetheart, when you have a job, you won't need to borrow money from me to go on trips." He sighed, annoyed. "Fine, I'll ask Ben. He said he might lend me some." "Good. Have fun then." Ethan went upstairs to pack while I sat with my coffee, my mind working like gears finally turning at full speed. 5 days more than I'd ever dared hope for, enough to do everything without interruption or suspicion. At exactly 2 p.m., Ben honked outside. Ethan ran down, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and said he'd call once they arrived. He didn't worry about leaving me alone to him. I was just another piece of furniture, always there, waiting. As the car turned the corner, I picked up my phone and called Mr. Robert, the real estate agent who'd helped me buy this house. "Mr. Robert, this is Gloria Bennett. Can we speed up the sale? I need the house sold this week." "Mrs. Bennett, that's quite fast. It usually takes a few weeks to find a serious buyer. I just want it sold this week." He paused for a few seconds, then said, "If we list it at around $180,000 and advertise it as a special opportunity, I think we can move it quickly, but it'll be a rush." "Then let's rush it. When can you start?" "Today. I'll take pictures and post the listing on property sites. By tomorrow, we can schedule viewings." "Perfect. I'll wait for your call." That afternoon, Robert arrived with a photographer. They took pictures of every corner, every room, the living room, the kitchen, the back porch. I stood silently, watching my home turn into a commodity. That evening, I called my sister. "Clara, remember I said I wanted to visit you? Could I come next week?" "Of course, Gloria. But you sound so urgent. Is something wrong?" "I'm carrying out a plan. A plan that's going to change my life forever." "What kind of plan?" "You'll know soon enough. I just need to be sure I can stay with you for a while." "As long as you want. My home is always open to you." On Wednesday morning, the phone rang nonstop. Robert kept me updated by the hour. 3 families wanted to see the house that day, and one of them seemed especially interested. At 9 a.m., the viewings began. The first family liked it but wanted to negotiate. The second thought the house was too small. But the third, a couple of school teachers with a teenage daughter, fell in love instantly. Mrs. Bennet, this house is perfect for us, the wife said, her eyes shining. We've been searching forever for a quiet place near a good school. The husband, calm and steady, added, we can offer $180,000 cash. If you agree, we can sign today. I agree. When can we finalize the paperwork? Robert stepped in. If we push the documents through quickly, we can close by Friday. 2 days. In just 2 days, the house would be sold, and when Ethan came back, his world would never look the same again. By Thursday, I was sitting in the real estate office signing the paperwork. When my phone rang, it was Ethan. His voice was bright and carefree. Mom, you wouldn't believe how amazing Myrtle Beach is. We've met so many people. It's been awesome. Should have come earlier. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm glad you're having fun. I'm thinking maybe I'll stay a few more days. I smiled, calm and certain. Stay as long as you like, son. By the time you're back, everything will be different. The whole group decided to extend their vacation. Stay as long as you like, Ethan. Enjoy yourself. Thanks, Mom. I love you. I love you too more than you realize. And that was the truth. I loved him enough to do what I should have done years ago, teach him to take responsibility for his own choices. On Friday, I finished signing the sale papers. The $180,000 was transferred straight into my account. The teacher couple received the keys with bright smiles, talking about their plans for each room. That weekend, I moved into a small rental apartment downtown, bringing only my clothes and a few keepsakes. Everything of Ethan's, I packed neatly into boxes and stored in my neighbor Mrs. Peterson's garage. When she heard what I was doing, she simply placed her hand on my shoulder and said, "You did the right thing, Gloria. That boy needs to learn to stand on his own 2 feet." On Sunday night, Ethan called, his voice cheerful. "Mom, this trip's been amazing. I feel like a whole new person." "That's great, sweetheart. When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow night around 8 o'clock. Ben's driving me home." "All right. Drive safe." On Monday, I set out for Asheville, North Carolina, to begin a new life at my sister Clara's home. For the first time in years, I was no longer Ethan's mom. I was simply Gloria. Clara took me for a walk around the neighborhood, introducing me to her neighbors, a little cafe, and the nearby park. I felt light, as though I could finally breathe after a long storm. That evening, I called Mrs. Peterson and asked her to leave a letter on the gate of the old house for Ethan. In it, I explained everything that had happened while he was off enjoying the beach. Every word in that letter was chosen carefully. Each sentence, each period, had a purpose to make Ethan understand the cost of the wish he'd spoken out loud. At 8 p.m., just when I knew he'd be returning, I imagined the scene. Ethan, stepping out of the car, backpack on his shoulder, laughing with his friends, still glowing from the Myrtle Beach trip. He walks toward the gate, sees the folded letter hanging on the door handle. He opens it, reads again. And in that very moment, when reality hits his knees give out, his hand grips the wall, his face turns pale with shock. Ethan finally understands. The wish for his mother to disappear came with a price. The letter I left was short, clear, with no extra words. I had written and rewritten it many times enough to say what needed to be said, nothing more. Ethan, at your birthday party, you said the best gift I could give you was to disappear from your life forever. I've decided to grant that wish. The house has been sold. Your things are stored in Mrs. Peterson's garage. I've started a new life, far from here. Now you have the freedom you always wanted. Enjoy it. Mom called, her voice trembling. Gloria, oh Lord, it was awful. The boy came home last night. I've never seen anyone so desperate. I'm listening. Tell me what happened. shouting that the people in the house had to leave because it was his home. The husband of the new family had to threaten to call the police before he stopped. I sat in silence, picturing it, Ethan, the son who once had everything, now staring into emptiness. She continued, "He ran to my house, crying like a child. He begged me to call you, to tell him where you are. He said it was all a misunderstanding, that you two could talk things out." "What did you say?" "I told him you left instructions not to share your location, that you needed time away." "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson." "Gloria, I know you did the right thing, but seeing that boy like that, it broke my heart." "Yes, it's heartbreaking, but sometimes pain is the only thing that helps a person grow." In the days that followed, Mrs. Peterson kept calling to update me. The first night, Ethan slept at her house. She took pity on him. The next day, he asked to crash on a friend's couch for a few days. "Gloria, he's looking for you like crazy. He's been going everywhere, asking around, stopping by real estate offices to see if you rented a place. He's completely panicked." "What about work? Has he tried to find a job?" "I'm not sure. All I know is he's wandering all day, hoping to find you." That was exactly what I expected. Ethan still didn't understand that no one was going to fix things for him anymore. By the end of the first week, he somehow got my new number from a relative. On Thursday night, the phone rang. When I saw his name on the screen, my heart stopped for a moment. I hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up. I knew this. Conversation was inevitable. "Mom, Mom, please, where are you? I don't understand what's happening." "You really don't understand, Ethan?" Everything was written clearly in the letter. "But Mom, you can't do this. You can't sell our house our whole life. Where am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to survive?" "You'll live somewhere you can afford to pay rent, Ethan. And you'll survive by working like everyone else does." "But I don't have a job. I don't have money. I don't have anything." "That's right. Now you know what it feels like to be treated as a burden in your own home." A long silence filled the line. Then Ethan spoke again, his voice trembling. "Mom, I know what I said at the birthday party was stupid. I know I hurt you, but I was drunk. My friends were teasing me. You know I didn't mean it. Ethan, you're 29 years old enough to take responsibility for every word you say. Please, Mom, give me another chance. I promise I'll change. I'll get a job. I'll help you. I'll be different." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said calmly but firmly, "How many times have you promised that, Ethan?" This time, his sobs weren't fake. They were the real, desperate cries of someone who had finally begun to grasp the consequences of his actions. "Please, tell me where you are. I want to see you, to talk face to face. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Ethan. You already got what you wanted, total freedom." I hung up, my heart aching, but my spirit strangely light. It was the hardest conversation of my life, but also the most necessary. In the following weeks, Ethan called dozens of times, sometimes crying, sometimes begging, other times trying to reason with me, even using tears to soften my resolve. I answered a few times, refused a few others, but my stance never changed. Mrs. Peterson, my former neighbor, kept calling regularly to report. "Gloria, the boy found a part-time job at a clothing store. The pay's not much, just enough for rent, but it's a start. He's thinner, quieter. I think he's starting to realize you were serious." A month after I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, Ethan called again. "Mom, I'm not going to beg you to come back anymore. I know you won't change your mind." "Good. I'm glad you understand that, Ethan." "Mom, I just want you to know I've learned my lesson the hard way. I'm working, paying my own bills, and for the first time in my life, I'm really living in the real world. And how does that feel? But now I understand why you did what you did. Mom, I'm truly sorry not because I want you back, but because I need you to know I've realized what I did wrong. Your apology is accepted, Ethan. Mom, where are you? I just want to know you're okay. I'm in Asheville, living with Aunt Clara. I'm fine, better than I've been in years. I'm happy for you, Mom. It took me 29 years to understand that. Thank you, son. Mom, one more thing. I know I ruined our relationship. Maybe we'll never be the same. But if I really change, could I have another chance to talk to you again someday? Ethan, you'll always be my son. But our relationship now has to be based on respect, not dependency. I understand, and I'll work to be worthy of that. When I hung up, I cried for the first time since leaving Savannah, not out of sadness, but out of relief. For the first time, Ethan spoke like a real man, no longer the spoiled child he once was. Clara stepped out onto the porch and saw me, quietly wiping away tears. Was that Ethan? Yes. You know what? He finally understands. And do you regret it? No, Clara. I'm proud. Proud that I had the courage to do what needed to be done. You saved your son, Gloria. He might not see it now, but one day he will. I hope so. Because that's what a real mother does, teaches her child to fly, even if she's the one who has to push him out of the nest. Ethan was learning to fly, and I was learning to live for myself. 6 months passed since I walked away from my old life. 6 months without anyone complaining, without dishes piling in the sink, without feeling like a burden. Clara's house had become my sanctuary, and more than that, it was where I found myself again. Before I was known only as Ethan's mom. Life in Asheville was completely different. I woke up early, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to watch the sunrise through the kitchen window. I brewed coffee with Clara, chatting about small things, the neighbors, the garden, simple plans for the day. Conversations without tension, without tears, something I had forgotten could exist. Clara wasn't just my sister anymore. She'd become my confidant, my anchor through this transformation. One afternoon, as we watered the garden together, she looked at me and smiled. Gloria, you've changed so much. You seem lighter, more like yourself. And she was right. I could feel that change in every part of me. I started reading again, cooking again, and enjoying the little joys I'd once forgotten. I put the money from the house sale into savings, earning enough interest to live comfortably without rushing back to work. For the first time in my life, I had peace and financial freedom, and it didn't depend on anyone else. 3 months later, I began volunteering at a local community childcare center. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. The little ones there reminded me of Ethan as a child, but in a warm, healing way, no longer tinged with bitterness. There, I could nurture my maternal instinct in a healthy way, with children who responded to love with love, who saw me as someone special, not a burden. Miss Lucy, the center's director, once told me, Gloria, you have something many people have lost: true patience, not the forced kind, but the kind that comes from genuine love. Her words left me speechless. Because I knew she was right, I had lost that when I was with Ethan. With him, my patience had turned into fear, and my devotion had turned into submission. News about Ethan still reached me through Mrs. Peterson, who called from time to time to give updates. She said he was now working at an auto repair shop, having quit the clothing store for a better-paying job. He was renting a small room in downtown Savannah, sharing the cost with a coworker. One afternoon, a call from her left me silent. She said, Ethan stopped by my house Sunday afternoon not to ask about you, but to thank me for keeping his things. He came to pick up a few leftover boxes. Gloria, that boy has really changed. He's finally become a man. He said he's learning auto repair, and he likes it. She continued. He told me that, for the first time in his life, he knows what it feels like to come home, exhausted, but happy because he earned the right to rest. Those words filled me with a strange kind of joy. Not exactly happiness because it still hurt knowing my son had to suffer to grow, but relief because I knew my decision had been the right one. Ethan had finally learned responsibility for his own life. I started dreaming about him strange dreams, where he was both the little boy I once held and the man he was becoming. In those dreams, we talked in ways we never could in real life. He apologized. I forgave him, and there was peace between us. But when I woke up, I knew reality was never that simple. Clara noticed I'd been thinking about Ethan more often. Gloria, you miss him, don't you? It was the question I'd avoided for so long. Of course, I missed him. I missed the son he could have become. The sweet memories of his childhood, and the hope for a healthy relationship between a mother and her grown son. One October afternoon, nearly 8 months after I left Savannah, Mrs. Peterson called again. Her voice sounding a little different. Gloria, I have news about Ethan. My heart pounded, afraid something terrible had happened. But then she said, he came by my house today, brought a few boxes of pastries he baked himself to give me. I froze. Ethan, the boy who couldn't even wash a single dish, was now baking for someone else. She went on. He said he's seeing a girl who works at the same auto shop. In the office department. She's been teaching him how to take care of the house, how to cook, how to do things he never learned. I felt a pang in my chest. I couldn't tell if it was jealousy or peace. Another woman was doing what I had failed to do, teaching Ethan how to be independent. But at the same time, I was happy that my son had found someone who loved him the right way. A love not built on endurance. Her name is Emily, Mrs. Peterson said. She's about 25, kind and polite. They're living together in a small apartment, clean, cozy, and warm. She doesn't let Ethan slack off. If he doesn't help, she packs her things and leaves, and it looks like he's learning fast. That night, I told Clara the news. Ethan's growing up, Gloria, she said. It was painful, but you did the right thing. A 29-year-old man needs to learn how to be a man. He can't stay a child forever. Clara was right, but deep down, I couldn't help wondering, was there a less cruel way to teach that lesson? By the end of October, I realized something that surprised even me. At a neighbor's birthday party, I had talked, laughed, and enjoyed myself for hours without thinking of Ethan once. For the first time in nearly 30 years, my mind wasn't defined by motherhood. I came home feeling light, as if I had finally shrugged off an invisible weight. While I was making tea, Clara looked at me and smiled. You know what, Gloria, you've healed. Healed from what? Healed from living someone else's life. For the first time, you're living for yourself. She was right. These past months, every decision I made was based on what I wanted, not on Ethan's needs or expectations. I chose where to live, how to spend my time, and who I wanted around me. Small choices, but they carried a kind of freedom I'd long forgotten. I started thinking about the future, not Ethan's future, but mine. Maybe I'd travel, explore places I'd never seen before. Maybe I'd sign up for an art class. Or maybe I'd just keep living this peaceful, simple life here in Asheville, North Carolina. Nearly 10 months after leaving Savannah, I received an unexpected call. It was Ethan. But this time, his voice was completely different. No more desperation. No more complaints. No more empty promises. Only the voice of a grown man who wanted to talk to his mother. Mom, I know you don't have to answer, but I needed to say a few things. Ethan's voice was deeper, steadier, unmistakably that of a man maturing. No longer the reckless son I once knew. I'm calling to let you know I'm okay. No, to be honest, I'm learning how to be a better person. He told me about Emily, about his job at the small auto shop on the outskirts of Savannah, about how he was learning to take care of himself and care for others. He talked about the hard days, about the shame of realizing he didn't know how to do anything, and about starting over from cooking his own meals to keeping his promises. At the end of the call, Ethan said something that made me cry. Mom, I want you to know I've forgiven you. Forgiven me? For what, Ethan? I asked, surprised. For loving me too much. For doing everything for me when you should have let me do it myself. I know it hurt you to see me struggle, but it was the best thing you ever did for me. When I hung up, I knew something had truly changed between us. Ethan was no longer the son who depended on me for everything, and I was no longer the mother who needed to feel worthy. Now, we were two adults loving each other, but each living our own lives. December arrived, bringing with it the damp chill of North Carolina and a strange restlessness I couldn't explain. There was something in the air, a feeling I couldn't yet name. Clara noticed my unease and teased, "You look like a teenage girl in love, restless, and you don't even know why." An unknown number. A young, polite female voice spoke. "This is Emily, Ethan's girlfriend. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to you." My heart raced. 100 possibilities flashed through my mind. An accident, an illness, something at work. Emily sensed the worry in my voice and quickly reassured me. "It's nothing serious, Miss Gloria. It's just that lately, Ethan's been really sad, especially with the year coming to an end. He misses you a lot." What she said next brought tears to my eyes. Emily told me that Ethan often talked about me, that he still felt guilty about everything, and that over the past few months, he had truly grown up. She said he worked hard, helped around the house, and had become a completely different man from before. "Miss Gloria," she said, her voice trembling, "he still cries because he misses you, because he regrets it all. He's afraid you'll never forgive him. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you please talk to him again? Even just once?" I stayed silent for a long time, trying to process everything I'd just heard. Then Emily continued, her voice breaking. "I love Ethan, Miss Gloria. And because I love him, I want to see him truly happy. He told me everything, took full responsibility for his mistakes, and said you're the best person he's ever known. I think you both deserve a second chance." When I put the phone down, Clara was standing at the kitchen door, watching me quietly with an understanding look. She didn't say anything at first, just walked over, hugged me gently, and whispered, "Maybe it's time, Gloria. Time to take the next step." I spent all of Christmas thinking about that conversation. Emily's words echoed in my mind, blending with old memories, images of Ethan as a little boy, the difficult years, and the pain of the distance that had grown between us. It felt as if all the scattered pieces of my life were slowly falling back into place. On December 28th, I made my decision. I called Ethan. When he answered, his voice trembled. "Mom, is that really you?" "It's me, son. Emily. She talked to you, didn't she?" Silence. Then the sound of soft crying came through the line. "Mom, I miss you so much. Not a day goes by that I don't think about you or regret what I did." "I miss you too, Ethan. More than I ever realized." We had the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Ethan talked about his job, about Emily, about the joy of learning to appreciate the simple things in life. He told me about doing his own laundry for the first time, the loneliness of those early months, and the happiness of finally building a life of his own. Mom, I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but would you come here and spend New Year's with me? I want you to meet Emily. I want you to see how much I've changed. Ethan's question caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to say yes right away, but another part of me was afraid of falling back into the same old cycle between us. Ethan, I'm not sure I'm ready. I understand, Mom. I just want you to know I'll respect whatever you decide. If you don't come, that's okay. But if you're willing to give me the chance to talk face to face, I promise this time will be different. I spent hours thinking about his invitation. My sister Clara advised me to go. You'll never truly be at peace until you see with your own eyes that your son has changed. I also called Mrs. Peterson, my old neighbor. She confirmed everything Emily had said. Gloria, he really is different now. Your son's become a decent man, responsible, hard-working, respectful. I think you can be proud of the man Ethan's turned into. On December 30th, I took the bus back to Savannah, Georgia, the city I had once left with a broken heart. That trip felt strange, filled with memories, anticipation, and quiet hope. When the bus pulled into the station, I saw Ethan waiting. He looked thinner, dressed simply but neatly, and in his eyes, there was a light I'd never seen before, the light of a man who had grown up. That hug was different from all the others before. No blame, no expectation. Just a son who missed his mother, and a mother who had learned to love without losing herself. On the way to his small apartment, Ethan excitedly talked about his current life, about customers at the shop, the new skills he was learning, and the plans he had for the future. I listened, and it felt like I was talking to an entirely new person. Their apartment was small, but tidy and warm. Emily greeted me with a simple dinner, a gentle smile, and eyes full of respect. During the meal, I quietly watched the way they treated each other. Ethan helped her set the table, stood up to pour her water, asked if she needed anything. It was a relationship built on equality and love, something he and I had never managed to achieve before. That night, we talked for hours. Ethan apologized for the first time, sincerely and maturely. No excuses, no blame. Just a man owning his mistakes, with eyes that understood the consequences of his actions. When Emily left us alone for a moment, Ethan looked at me, his voice trembling. Mom, I know I broke what we had. Maybe it'll never be the same. But I want you to know I've learned to respect you, to appreciate everything you've done for me. If you'll give me a chance, I want to rebuild our relationship, an adult-to-adult relationship, based on respect and real love. I looked at my son, no longer the dependent boy, but the man I had always hoped to see. Not because he was perfect, but because he had learned to stand on his own 2 feet. On January 2nd, I returned to Asheville, carrying with me a deep certainty that every decision I'd made was the right one. Ethan had grown up. I had found myself again. And between us, a new kind of relationship had begun, healthier, more genuine. Now, I can truly say that we both became better people. Ethan and Emily married not long after. They're building a peaceful, loving life together. I still live in Asheville, visiting them a few times a year, and I'm preparing to become a grandmother, a role I welcome with calm pride. Our relationship isn't perfect, but it's real. It's built on mutual respect, not dependency. Ethan learned how to be a man, and I learned that love doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes, the greatest act of a mother's love is teaching her child how to fly, even if it means being the one to push them from the nest. This Story is fictional but inspired by true experiences, with names and places changed to protect privacy. Gloria wasn't a perfect mother, and Ethan wasn't a bad son. They were simply two people learning how to love without hurting each other. Sometimes, love isn't about holding on, but about the courage to let go so the one you love can grow. If it were you, would you stay silent to keep the peace, or speak up to change everything? Whatever your choice, believe that God blesses those who live with honesty and unconditional love. Thank you for listening to today's story. Stay until the end of the video to watch 2 more stories we believe will move your heart and maybe help you find a piece of yourself in them.